Hi everyone. Today we did get a slight continuation. You can see these levels continue to be very important. We rallied up right to 472.50, touched that level, stopped right at it here on the hourly, pulled back, touched 468.05 almost to the penny, and then rallied right back to 472.50. After hours, we're above it, pushing to this trend structure here. The overall structure kind of looks bear flaggy and potentially resistance, but let's take a look at the rest of the charts and see if we can find some direction for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. At some point, I would really love to stop talking about tariffs, but it seems like there is new tariff news coming out every single day. Today is April 1st. Tomorrow is supposed to be Liberation Day. I've heard rumors we might get pushed to the 3rd, but for now, looking at tomorrow, you can see President Trump taking his biggest gamble of his second term, looking to jumpstart the income for the government off of these tariffs, potentially a new era for the U.S. economy, all of that. We're waiting to see if it comes to fruition, but for now, it seems like the looming threat of tariffs continues to be a potential risk factor for the economy. Do we get into stagflationary environment where we have inflation sticking around with tariffs and slowing growth? I don't find that to be super likely. I think if we do get tariffs and we do get a slowing economy, I would assume that inflation is likely to come down. But the stagflation is the big risk. For sure, if we do get stagflation, that's going to be terrible for everybody. But you can see it here. They are preparing for Liberation Day. The stock market is continuing to hate it every single day. Even though over the last 2 days, we've actually shown a little bit of strength into this announcement. If we do get the announcement tomorrow, seems like a little bit of a bull trap, but for now, waiting to see what this looks like. They're still trying to negotiate, which is why I think we might see this get pushed just a little bit. Trying to implement 100% reciprocal tariffs, I think, is a little too aggressive. I don't think they'll actually do that, but you never know. If they do, that could be awful. So keep it in mind and look for the news tomorrow. Looking at fear and greed, we finished here at a 19, down from a 21. So we saw bullish price action, but we saw a move down on the indicator. Interesting to see that. So far, we're still holding a slightly higher low. You can see back here was our previous low around 19 or 20, and then we got as low as 11 here on March 4th. The 5th was a 12, super extreme fear. So far, we're holding up a slightly higher low, even with the price action that we saw where we kind of double bottomed. All of the indicators are still in extreme fear. Put call ratio actually rallying a lot as we head into this Liberation Day potential announcement. Volatility did pull back a little bit. That was interesting. Bonds, however, have not improved. Still extreme fear on safe haven demand, and junk bonds still sitting in fear. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see CPI for the Eurozone a little bit hotter on the month-over-month basis. 0.4 was the previous, 0.6 was the current. The core number continues to come down, however. Unemployment rate improving there slightly. Global manufacturing PMI better than expectations. Construction spending also better than expectations. So that's overall good. ISM manufacturing PMI a little bit worse. Manufacturing prices continue to stay relatively elevated. And then look at this GDP number, terrible, down at a minus 3.7. If that comes to fruition, we're going to be in big trouble. So this is kind of a forecast number. Obviously, it's not the actual GDP numbers, and I really don't think they're going to come in that bad. If we do, that is going to be terrible, like I said. Looking at tomorrow, pretty much nothing on the calendar. ADP non-farm employment change. That could be interesting, but really that's just a forecast ahead of the jobs data on Friday. Forgot to mention JOLTS report. It was worse than expected. Previous number was revised up, so a little bit of an improvement there. This was not bad enough to really shake markets at all. Markets didn't care too much on that announcement. And then for the Thursday, there's really not much either. Just initial jobless claims, a little bit of soft data. Moving over to the charts here, we actually got another improvement on the SPY charts here. You can see up about a quarter, nothing too convincing. After hours, we're up about $1. You like to see that. 21 EMA is still looming there as overhead resistance at 564.86. Obviously, that continues to move down. You do have a pretty clean double bottom. So far, so good on that. We're above the trend line here today. That was resistance yesterday. We got above it here today. You still have 9 and VWAP in there, 200 in there as overhead resistance. This zone is obviously going to be pretty heavy resistance. You can see it was here. gapped through it, gapped back through it, kind of dojied in the middle. But so far you have to like this. I think we're just kind of doing a little bit more of a longer bottoming formation here, and then we get a retracement, and then that kind of stronger continuation lower. I still think the continuation lower is going to happen, but that's a little bit more of a medium-term thesis. In the short term, structurally, like I said in the opener, this does look decent. 21 EMA was holding as support on the hourly. VWAP got tested a little bit, did close below it, did close back above it, so you don't love that. But structurally, 21 EMA seems to be your zone of support on the hourly chart. Again, overhead resistance for sure, 565. With the 200 there, the 144 right in here makes sense. But for now, does look a little bit short-term bullish. I would expect at least a touch of that zone tomorrow. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see that ATR resistance is the zone that we're concerned with here. You can see that's at 563.50. We almost touched it a couple of times here today, but that is your overhead resistance right now. That is a little bit concerning for me. Want to see that first candle tomorrow close above that level to put us back into bullish conditions. The 8 EMA was support here through the session on the 4-hour chart. Obviously, we overthrew it really powerfully on the 11 o'clock candle, but ended up closing back above it. So far, so good on that. Want to see that continue, but watching it closely here with this overhead resistance. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see the NASDAQ was also positive on the day by about 0.8, a little bit more, 0.81, almost 1%. After hours, we're seeing that same kind of push here. Structurally, this is a bit odd. So you have this kind of long-term support in here. We've watched that in here. We're watching it again. We touched that zone and found some support. So that seems to be important. You can see this is still a lower low on the NASDAQ, but so far we're finding a bounce in there. You have this overhead resistance trend. For whatever reason here on the daily chart, it is not showing as close, but on the hourly, very, very close to this zone here. We're going to see if that becomes a problem tomorrow. We're right at it. We touched it in the after hours. It seems like we're trying to push through there. Definitely some bullishness going on in the after hours. So far, so good on that. We're not as close to that overhead resistance here on the NASDAQ charts. You can see that's closer to 481.94. The fact that this is a lower low is a little bit concerning, but you still can see that RSI divergence, which is showing strength. So you have a really low here all the way down at a 28. We have a much higher RSI read right now, and you can see price ended up actually going lower, and so far we've rallied out of that. So we're looking for a little bit of bullishness off of that divergence. Again, really the same thesis that we've been saying. I think we're going to go back to here. I think we're going to test this trend line. But in the short term, we are seeing some bullishness for sure. A little bit weird of a bottoming formation there. Overall, short-term bullish, but looking for that medium-term sell. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you can see that trailing stop there, 476.90. So you have a little bit more room. That would give you about $4 from the closing price, about $3 in the after hours. Looking for a push at least to this zone. Momentum showing some bullishness, a little bit of volume coming through. Again, still kind of looks bear flaggy, but for now, looking for a little bit of bullishness, waiting for a kind of finishing style move here. Like I said yesterday, very extended below this ATR band. Looking for this kind of pullback in time, pullback in price, and then we're going to see if we get that kind of continuation back to that lowest ATR band. If we did right now, that would be 461.76. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell was basically unchanged, up 2 pennies. After hours, we're up about 50 cents. You can see 198.75 has been the zone of support. So far, it's held. Same kind of divergence, but momentum not showing strength yet. Dow, on the other hand, you have a low, slightly higher low, not the same as everything else. RSI still hanging in there. It was actually negative on the day by 28 cents. After hours, it's up a little bit, so still holding at support, which is that 418.38 level. Through a big wick to the trend line, so far still holding. Looking for that kind of swing here if we can get it. Moving over to the Mag 7, we've been kind of skipping over this one because it's been doing pretty much nothing relative to markets. We're in line with markets here. It's in line with this kind of consolidation range. We're right at the low of this range here. In terms of levels, though, we did get a level break. So you got 273.41. We're above that by about $1. And then after hours, we're up another 50 cents from there. Waiting to see if this can get to the trend around 279. If we can get through there, then you're looking for this kind of 289.70 area to 90.65 as a potential zone of resistance. But the fact that the Mag 7 is not cratering right here is a little bit of a bullish indicator for me. A lot of these charts look terrible, but so far the Mag 7 as a group is hanging in there relatively unchanged from kind of mid-March till now. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, we got a flip here on these two. Apple was up 0.5%, still cannot get above 224.36, critical zone there, overhead resistance. Didn't even test it today. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. If it can get through here, I think we're going to go pretty quickly up to that 230 area. Tons and tons of volume here in this kind of consolidation area. So it does make sense why this is resistance right now. You can see volume there. And then looking at Microsoft, really, really strong push, 1.8%. Did underperform yesterday, did kind of make up for all of that, push through the level. So you could be in a trade here at 378.77. So if you bought the level, looking for 388, that's your overhead resistance. That would be your take profit. So if you get that, that'd be nice. That'd be about a $10 move. And at this point, you could have caught it in both directions because you opened at the level here, sold right to here. And now you're looking for a break here, continuation to here. So waiting to see, maybe we can get a little bit more movement there. Momentum stepping to bullish, RSI right at the SMA. If it's going to break, it needs to go and push through this zone. Otherwise, maybe you get a rejection here at the SMA on the RSI. So something to watch for. Just watch that one tomorrow. Once we get that touch, there might be a little bit of a reaction. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla got through that 264.68 level, pushing towards 280. The high of day was 277, so we almost touched it already. Again, you could be in a trade here with 264.68 as your stop, looking for a push to 280.06. And then NVIDIA, look at NVIDIA holding some rally here at 1.6%. We held above the level 106.6, so maybe you took the trade there on the push through it yesterday. Almost got a retest. It looks like we touched it, maybe just barely. The low of day was 106.47, so we would have touched it and then bounced from there. Closed on the high, after hours looks good. Looking for this to go to that 21 EMA, 114.74, and then potentially 116.70, critical zone there. So you got a low, double bottom, looking for some rally out, waiting to see if we can get some follow through. So far, all of the bullish setups have failed, but this one seems to have a little bit more legs. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples continues to stay positive. There are still buyers here, still above the trend. After hours, we're above that 81.85 level. Looking for this to push all the way to the trend up here, ultimately in this kind of 85 area. So I still think that's going to go momentum bullish, RSI bullish. And then look at discretionaries. Consolidation bottom, touch to that zone, rally out. Still not above that 200.53 level. 21 EMA, VWAP, 9 EMA, zone of resistance clearly in here. Touch that zone, reject it a little bit. Want to see it get through there. And then you could start to look for these kind of higher levels up here. But right now, that's the critical zone. You still have the 200 there as well at 204.31. Moving over to breadth. Breadth held up really, really well. 2.7% up on 20-day through a wick to the zone, found support, rallied up, closed above the level 51.75. 200 SMA still there as resistance, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. 50-day looks a lot better. You can see touched that zone of support, got back above 40, closed on the high, looking for some strong continuation, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. So we've gotten a really big reversal early in the week. This is a bullish period for markets in the April timeframe, waiting to see if we can get some continuation here. So far, so good. Breadth holding up. We said it looked good yesterday, and it still looks good here today. Moving over to the dollar. The dollar is doing absolutely nothing, and it is waiting for tariffs, in my opinion. We're stuck in the same zone between the trend here, 104.07, 104.4, through wicks in both directions, held support, didn't touch resistance. You could argue maybe that's slightly bearish here. We can't get to the zone. Testing support here. Slightly bearish on the RSI, but really just consolidation. Waiting for better information on tariffs, in my opinion. Moving over to bonds, J&K, not so great, down about 1/3%, tested the level, and then found some support momentum, a little bit bearish there. I really, really want this zone to hold. Obviously, that doesn't matter to markets at all, but 94.82, I'd like it to hold. You still have plenty of support here at 93.67. But momentum a little bit bearish, RSI a little bit bearish. You got a lower high set up here. Seems like markets are a little concerned about some of these higher risk bond investments losing a little bit of value, potentially seeing some bankruptcies if we do get a recessionary environment. So this is moving down a little bit. We're seeing fear on the junk bond indicator as well. And then looking at TLT up again, hit that 144 EMA at 91.76. And so far that continues to look bullish, and I still have a very bullish outlook on long-term government bonds. Moving over to the VIX. The VIX actually threw a wick to the upside and then sold off a little bit. We're right at the trend here, still at that 21 EMA. Momentum still bullish, but maybe we get a high, slightly lower high here. I was still looking for this to push into here. I still think we're going to go here. The structure is not broken for that to happen, and the indicators still say that that should happen. Maybe we go slightly lower first, and then we get the rally through. This is a critical zone here going into tomorrow. Makes sense that we would be there heading into the news announcement tomorrow potentially. But right now, you have to entertain the fact that maybe this is a high, lower high. And then if we do get a continuation lower, should be looking for that kind of 17.5 area, maybe slightly lower, 16.9 or so. Moving over to my accounts, despite the big head fakes, I actually managed to make a few dollars, which is absolutely shocking. I traded a lot and I shouldn't have, but overall, I was actually trading pretty well at the levels, and then we did get some pretty consistent moves that I was able to take advantage of. Still not making a lot on my trades, but strategy-wise, I followed it pretty closely, and I was doing well on that. Starting to gain a little bit of confidence on that potential style of trading. And I do like it, so trying to clean up the trades at the levels a little bit, try to get a little less slippage. And I did manage to do that a little bit here today. So overall, made a few bucks. You like to see it. Obviously not keeping up with markets, but improving the strategy. And then going into tomorrow, I left on some short puts. So I have a little bit of a bullish thesis here. Haven't held any options into the close for a while, but I do think we're seeing a little bit of a bottoming pattern and move higher. And you can see after hours, this just continues to climb up about a dollar now on the Qs. So bullish thesis, looking to make just short of $400 on that trade for tomorrow. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the tariffs. Is there anything else worth talking about that's driving markets the way that tariffs are right now? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.